Emma Dawson had always been a vibrant and ambitious young woman. A promising graphic designer, she spent her days creating art, laughing with friends, and daydreaming about the future. However, over time, her life was quietly overtaken by a force she hadn't even noticed creeping in: her addiction to her phone and social media. At first, it seemed harmless, an innocent way to connect with friends, stay updated on trends, and share snapshots of her life. But somewhere along the way, the endless scroll of perfectly curated feeds, notifications, and dopamine hits from likes and comments began to dictate her reality. Emma's mornings started with her phone. Before her feet touched the floor, she would grab it off the nightstand and check Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. What began as 15 minutes quickly stretched into 30. By the time she finally left her bed, she was already running late for work, her mood dependent on the number of likes her latest post had received. At work, she found it increasingly difficult to focus. Her projects, once brought her pride, now felt like distractions from the endless content she believed she needed to consume. Every few minutes, she would unlock her phone to check something quickly, only to find herself lost in a vortex of reels, memes, and notifications. Deadlines became overwhelming, and her creativity waned. Her evenings were no better. What used to be a time for drawing, reading, or chatting with friends became consumed by screen time. Hours passed in a blur of scrolling, watching, and commenting. She stopped calling her friends. Interacting through posts and stories felt sufficient. Yet, deep down, Emma felt lonelier than ever. Emma only began to understand the severity of her problem when her best friend, Sarah, confronted her about it. One evening, Sarah invited her to a small gathering. Although Emma reluctantly agreed to attend, she spent most of the night glued to her phone, scrolling through TikTok while her friends laughed and chatted around her. "Emma, are you even here?" Sarah asked at one point, her voice laced with frustration. "What do you mean?" "I am right here," Emma replied defensively, though she knew deep down that Sarah was right. "No, you are not. You are always somewhere else, on your phone, in your world. I miss the real you." Sarah's words stung. Emma hadn't considered it that way before, but the observation lingered. That night, she lay in bed and opened her screen time app. The numbers shocked her: 7 hours a day, sometimes even more. A week's worth of time was lost to her phone. She stared at the ceiling, guilt and frustration gnawing at her. How did it get this bad? She whispered to herself. The following day, Emma made a decision. She was going to take her life back. Although she didn't know exactly how, she was determined to find a way. Her first step was to understand her triggers. She realized that boredom, stress, and insecurity often drove her to pick up her phone. Additionally, she noticed that social media made her compare herself to others, fueling feelings of inadequacy. To start small, she deleted several apps from her phone, including TikTok and Twitter. Instagram, her biggest weakness, remained for now, but she promised to limit its use. She also ordered a physical alarm clock to eliminate the need for her phone to be able to be carried by her bed. The first few days were more complex than Emma had anticipated. Her fingers instinctively reached for her phone every few minutes, only for her to remember that the apps were gone. She felt restless, irritable, and strangely empty, as if a part of her routine had been torn away. During those moments of discomfort, she forced herself to sit with her feelings instead of escaping into her screen. She journaled, expressing her frustrations and insecurities. She rediscovered the simple pleasure of sketching in her notebook, something she hadn't done in months. Emma set clear boundaries for herself. During meals, she kept her phone in another room. At work, she turned off all non-essential notification. She read a book at night instead of scrolling through her social media feed. Gradually, her mind began to feel more precise. As the weeks went by, Emma noticed significant changes. Her creativity returned, and she started producing some of her best work in months. Her mornings felt less rushed, and her evenings became more peaceful. Without the constant barrage of social media, she reconnected with herself. She began taking long walks without her phone, allowing herself to observe the world around her, the golden hues of autumn leaves, the cheerful chatter of birds, and the warmth of sunlight on her skin. These small, mindful moments became her sanctuary. Emma also reached out to others in more meaningful ways. She called Sarah to apologize for her past behavior and promised to be more present in their friendship. True to her word, she met Sarah for coffee, leaving her phone in her bag the entire time. They laughed and conversed without distractions for the first time in a long while. It was sometimes challenging, though. There were days when Emma slipped back into her old habits, especially during stressful or lonely moments. Once, during a tough week at work, she redownloaded Instagram and lost hours to mindless scrolling. Instead of criticizing herself for her setbacks, Emma compassionately approached her relapses. She reminded herself that change is a process, not an overnight transformation. After deleting the app again, she moved forward, feeling more assertive in her resolve. Months later, Emma's life looked vastly different. She wasn't entirely free from her phone. It was a tool, not an enemy. But she had reclaimed control. Social media became just that, a tool she used sparingly and intentionally rather than a crutch or an escape. Her relationships flourished as she prioritized face-to-face connections over virtual ones. Her work thrived, and her creativity blossomed without constant distractions. Most importantly, Emma rediscovered herself, her dreams, her passions, and the quiet joy of simply being. Emma's journey taught her that addiction doesn't always manifest as substances or destructive habits. Sometimes, it can be as subtle as a phone in your hand, pulling you away from the life unfolding around you. She learned that breaking free wasn't just about willpower. It was about understanding herself, setting boundaries, and finding healthier coping methods. Emma felt a profound sense of freedom as she stood by the lake with her phone safely tucked in her pocket one evening. She was fully present for the first time in years, savoring the moment for what it was. She smiled, knowing she had finally taken her life back. Let us know your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more captivating stories like this one.